That lawn really needs mowing, and those bushes should be pruned soon. If I don't water those flowers within a few days, they may die. And maybe a nice gardenia would go well in that corner. Yes, with one of those ornamental bird baths in front. I could pick one up at the nursery. That is enjoying thinking and planning. There is no peace of mind there. The smart gardener considers, I've worked long enough. Now is the time to enjoy the fruit of my work, to listen for the peace. So even though the lawn needs mowing and the leaves need raking and blah, 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 not now. This way, we find the wisdom to enjoy the garden, even though it's not perfect. Perhaps there's an old Japanese monk hiding behind one of the bushes, ready to jump out and tell us that our messy old garden really is perfect. Indeed, if we look at the work we have already done, instead of focusing on the work that remains to be done, we might understand that what's done has been finished. But if we focus exclusively on the faults, on the things that need to be fixed, as in the case of my brick wall in my monastery, we will never know peace. The intelligent gardener enjoys their 15 minutes of peace in the perfect imperfection of nature, not thinking, not planning, and not feeling guilty. We all deserve to get away and have some peace, and others deserve the peace of us getting out of their way. Then, after getting our crucial life-saving 15 minutes of peace out of its way, we carry on with our gardening duties. When we understand how to find such peace in our garden, we will know how to find peace anytime, anywhere. Especially, we will know how to find peace in the garden of our heart, even though at times we might think that it's such a mess, with so much to be done. Guilt and absolution. A few years ago, a young Australian woman came to see me at my temple in Perth. Monks are often sought out for advice on people's problems, perhaps because we're cheap. We never charge a fee. She was tormented with guilt. Some 6 months previously, she had been working in a remote mining community in the north of Western Australia. The work was hard and the money good, but there was not much to do in the hours off work. So one Sunday afternoon, she suggested to her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend that they all go out for a drive in the bush. Her girlfriend didn't want to go, and neither did the boy, but it was no fun going alone. So she cajoled, argued, and badgered until they gave in and agreed to go on the drive in the bush. There was an accident. The car rolled on the loose gravel road. The young woman's girlfriend was killed. The boy was paralysed. The drive was her idea, yet she wasn't hurt. She told me, with sorrow in her eyes, if only I hadn't forced them to go, she would still be here. He would still have his legs. I shouldn't have made them go. I feel so terrible. I feel so guilty. The first thought that came into my mind was to reassure her that it wasn't her fault. She didn't plan to have the accident. She had no intention of hurting her friends. These things happen. Let it go. Don't feel guilty. But the second thought that came up was, I bet she's heard that line before hundreds of times, and it obviously hasn't worked. So I paused, looked deeper into her situation, then told her it was good that she felt so guilty. Her face changed from sorrow to surprise, and from surprise to relief. She hadn't heard this before, that she should feel guilty. I'd guessed right. She was feeling guilty about feeling guilty. She felt guilty and everyone was telling her not to. She felt double guilt, guilt over the accident and guilt over feeling guilty. Our complicated minds work like that. Only when we had dealt with the first layer of guilt and established that it was all right for her to feel guilty, could we proceed to the next stage of the solution, what's to be done about it. There's a helpful Buddhist saying, rather light a candle than complain about darkness. There's always something we can do instead of feeling upset, even if that something is just sitting peacefully for a while, not complaining. Guilt is substantially different from remorse. In our culture, guilty is a verdict hammered out on hard wood by a judge in a court. And if no one else punishes us, we will look to punish ourselves some way or another. Guilt means punishment deep in our psyche. So the young woman needed a penance to absolve her from guilt. Telling her to forget it and get on with life wouldn't have worked. I suggested that she volunteer for work at her local hospital's rehab unit, assisting the casualties of road accidents. For there, I thought, she would wear away her guilt with all the hard work, and also, as usually happens in voluntary work, be helped so much by the very people she was there to help. Criminal guilt. Before I had the honourable but burdensome office of abbot dumped upon me, I used to visit the prisons around Perth. I kept a careful record of the hours of service I had spent in jail to be used as credit in case I ever got sentenced. On my first visit to a big prison in Perth, I was surprised and impressed at the number of prisoners who came to hear me speak on meditation. The room was packed. Around 95% of the prisoner population had come to learn meditation. The longer I spoke, the more restless my captive audience grew. After only 10 minutes, one of the prisoners, one of the leading crims in the jail, put up his hand to interrupt my talk and ask a question. I invited him to go ahead and ask. "Is it really true," he said, "that through meditation you can learn how to levitate?" Now I knew why so many prisoners had come for my talk. They were all planning to learn meditation so they could levitate over the walls. I told them that it is possible, but only for exceptional meditators, and then only after many years of training. The next time I went to teach at that prison, only 4 prisoners turned up for the session. Over the many years that I taught inside prisons, I got to know some of the criminals